Welcome back to Truth Hurts. We expose corrupt politicians like corporate media. On my screen, that intro didn't work.
Yeah.
So I have no idea.
It just froze up on me too.
So who knows if you guys saw it or not? Boy, we look like amateurs here. Welcome back to the Truth Hurts, where we expose corrupt politicians like corporate media. I'm Jake Duesenberg, your host, broadcasting live from Roseville, Minnesota, in the belly of the beast, the liberal zombie apocalypse of Minneapolis and St. Paul. Join me as always, MAGA Jesse. What are we talking about today, Jesse?
Yeah, we got some good stuff. We'll be talking about Steve Simon, who is rejecting a request by the Department of Justice for certain election information, the voter registration. We're going to discuss all angles of it, whether it's a states' rights issue or whether this is something that the federal government should be doing, because we have all kinds of laws like driver's licenses for illegals, so that there's these loopholes for illegals to potentially register to vote. So we'll discuss what's going on with that case. We'll also talk about a cyber attack that was launched against St. Paul, and what did Tim Walz do immediately? He put in the National Guard. If only he did that with Black Lives Matter. So, or if he had done that sooner, because he does it immediately when it comes to a cyber attack. Then we'll talk about some tariff rebate checks and some things, whether or not that's a good idea, what's going on there. And I don't know if anybody else in the Twin Cities, Jake, I don't know if this had hit you, but there was that crazy storm that had happened. Did that hit you? There was like an ice storm. It wasn't just I wouldn't even call it hail. It was ice. It was going nuts. So anybody else maybe in the Twin Cities got hit too?
We didn't get ice in Lake Elmo, but yeah, that storm knocked out our power at about 9:00. And the funny thing is, for those of you that are in the Founders Club at Action for Liberty, I do a pork butt. I roast this for the Founders Club's events probably twice a year. So I got a thing where I roast the pork butt all night long, and I put it on my smoker at about 7:00. And I have a electric smoker, and so I was in crisis mode last night when the power went out and trying to make sure that pork got cooked. So there you go, first world problems right there.
Yeah.
Anyhow, joining us in the comment section, Cindy Lou. Hi everyone. O'Bannon, Tucker 91. And we will break the rules of our show is, if you want to interrupt at the same time you're watching live, hit that Rumble rant button, or on YouTube super chats, and we'll go directly live to your comment. We're brought to you today by John Galt Mortgage Company. If you're looking to purchase a home, give the good guys at John Galt Mortgage a chance at financing that home. You can go to johngaltmortgage.com or check them out on Facebook or X. We're also brought to you by Alpine Cabinetry in St. Cloud, Minnesota. Okay, Jesse, let's get into this first story here. I'm going to pull up. Well, let me give you how this all went down for me. I don't know if this is how it went down for you. I think it is how it went down for you. On Saturday morning, I had a pretty busy Saturday, and I had seen this tweet. It showed up in my newsfeed from the Republican Party of Minnesota, and it said, "Accountability alert. Steve Simon, as an officer of the court, is mandated to obey DOJ directives. No exceptions. Upholding the rule of law isn't optional. It's a duty. Let's ensure justice is served and integrity is maintained. Hashtag justice matters. Hashtag rule of law. Hashtag DOJ." By the way, Elon Musk has said hashtags don't work. Okay, so I saw that 6:42 or whenever that came out. I mean, this is on a Saturday. That's early just for a weekday, like a business day. This is a Saturday. Like, what the hell are they even talking about? I had no idea the reference that, the context of what they were referencing here. Mostly because the story at hand didn't come out until, I think, probably Friday afternoon. And what they're referring to is the Department of Justice looking for election information and data from the state of Minnesota, and I'm going to read an article from the AP that's beyond just Minnesota, but it's asking for this data, and Secretary of State Steve Simon doesn't want to play ball, okay? Because, states don't have to do just what the feds want them to do. Got that? Follow me there? Okay, Good.
Well, and
Steve
also,
Simon.
but to your point about the Plekish or the MNGOP post, I mean, it doesn't make any sense why he wouldn't provide any kind of sort of context, why he wouldn't provide a link or something. Because if you want people to be aware of something, you want people to be able to research it. They should be able to know what you're referencing, and it just shows a pattern of the failed social media strategy of the MNGOP. It's a joke now. It's always been a joke, and they're not plugged into what people are really talking about and thinking about, and just the way they present it, it's out of touch.
And also, I just gotta say, like, what do you mean, officer of the court? That's such a weird thing to say about the Secretary of State. Okay, so anyhow, the story that they're referencing is actually the letter. This is dated July 25th from the state of Minnesota Secretary of State Steve Simon. Now, people that know our show, we're no fans of Steve Simon. This is the guy that unilaterally declared himself emperor of the Minnesota House and said, we're just going to adjourn every day and not actually hold session because the Democrats were boycotting it, right? Under the directive of Melissa Hortman, who all Republicans say wonderful things about her. I mean, she was the like a terrible person back in January, but it's just amazing how we find out about all those friendships after she passes away. Anyhow, long story short, Secretary of State Steve Simon on July 25th. I assume this came on the afternoon because I didn't even hear about it. And we're pretty plugged in. And I was working on Friday, which I think is the summer. Yeah, I was working, so I hadn't heard of this. But let's just get past. They're answering a bunch of questions from the DOJ. It comes down to the very end of this. It says voter registration list. Finally, you ask, request number 15, that the Office of Secretary of State provide a copy of Minnesota's statewide voter registration list, including both active and inactive voters. That list contains sensitive personal identifying information on several million individuals. The Office of Secretary of State takes seriously its obligations under state and federal law, including HAVA, which is referenced earlier, to protect the data from unauthorized use. As a result, it is a long-standing practice of the Office of Secretary of State not to disclose any information contained in its statewide voter registration list unless expressly required by law. The Office of Secretary of State also believes in public accountability and scrutiny of our systems and will share voter registration information when required by law. For example, the OSS is fully cooperating with the nonpartisan Office of Legislative Auditor in its review of Minnesota's voter registration practices and will be providing them with full access to any data they require to conduct evaluation. The Department of Justice did not, however, identify any legal basis in its June 25th letter that would entitle it to Minnesota's voter registration list, nor did it explain how this information would be used, stored, and secured. It is unclear, for example, if this information would be subject to the Freedom of Information Act or whether the Department of Justice would share the data with other federal agencies. The Office of Secretary of State will require clear legal justification for the data and sufficient information to show that the data will be protected and used properly before it can consider whether it's appropriate to share Minnesota's voter registration list. Okay, what the heck are we even talking about? This is an article back in June from the AP. Justice Department's early move on voting and election signals shift from its traditional role. In North Carolina, it was a lawsuit over the state's voter registration records. In Arizona and Wisconsin, it was a letter to state election officials warning of potential administrative violations. And in Colorado, it was a demand for election records going back to 2020. Those actions in recent weeks by the U.S. Department of Justice voting section may seem focused on the technical machinery of how elections are run, but signal deeper changes when combined with the departures of career attorneys and decisions to drop various voting rights cases. They represent a shift away from the division's traditional role of protecting access to the ballot box. Instead, the actions address concerns that have been raised by a host of conservative activists following years of false claims surrounding elections in the U.S. Some voting rights and election experts also note that by targeting certain states, presidential battlegrounds, or those controlled by Democrats, the moves could be foreshadowing an expanded role for the department in future elections. By the way, you guys against that? David Becker, a former department attorney who worked on voting rights cases and now leads the Center for Election Innovation and Research, said the Justice Department's move represented a departure from focusing on major violations of federal law. Quote, this would be like the police department prioritizing jaywalking over murder investigations, he said. A Justice Department spokesperson responded with no comment to an emailed request for more information about the actions, including whether similar ones had been taken in any other states. Okay, there's your story. This is an interesting one for me, Jesse. Clearly, the Republicans want to go with it. We have actually a letter from Republicans in the Minnesota House that were requesting the data from Secretary of State Steve Simon. I got to pull that up. I completely forgot that in my show prep here. But they were actually trying to like pounce on this issue, right? I think it was from the. Do you know what I'm referring to? I think it was like elections group committee. Do you know what committee that is?
I think I had heard something about it. I didn't really look into it any further than the headline, but I think you're right that the GOP representatives had requested it, and I think that came after, of course, the reporting that the DOJ was requesting it. And I'm a little torn on this too because, like you said, we're obviously no fans of Steve Simon. I sued Steve Simon to try to remove a candidate from the presidential ballot because he was not a natural-born citizen of the United States, Shiva Ayudari, and he remained on the ballot anyway because of the Minnesota Supreme Court refusing to hear the case, which is ridiculous. Even Steve Simon, in his response to that lawsuit, had to admit that, of course, if this guy is not a natural-born citizen, he shouldn't be on the ballot, but they placed him on the ballot anyway. And the way that he conducted himself during the State House of Representatives, where he overtook the power and was taking the gavel and not allowing the Republicans to do their business as they were the only representatives at the Capitol doing their jobs. But I had heard something, like you were saying, Jake, about the House Republicans requesting this information as well. And it's interesting also the FOIA element that Simon had said, if it is true that this information could be FOIA'd, but I would assume that the Department of Justice is crossing their T's and dotting their I's to make sure that when they're requesting information, it's kept private when necessary.
Okay, I did find the response here from House Republicans. So let's go into this. This is written by Dwayne Quam, who is the co-chair of Elections, Finance, and Government Operations. Excuse me. We have had the opportunity to review the letter sent on behalf of your office by your General Counsel, Justin Erickson, to the U.S. Justice Department. Given the recent federal convictions of individuals who sought to register illegal and fake voters in Minnesota, we urge you to reconsider the response from your office. This is a strongly worded letter, isn't it? It is extremely puzzling and disappointing that as a chief elections official in the state and a constitutional officer, you would not want to fully cooperate with the Civil Rights Division of the DOJ to protect the voting rights of the citizens of Minnesota. I guess I think I pretty much got you the gist of this thing. Dwayne Quam, signed Pam Altendorf, Joe McDonald, Jimmy Gordon, Ben Davis, and Drew Roach, all the Republicans on that committee. Okay, so here's the deal. Yeah, we're going to shit on the GOP for sending out a tweet with no context. I think now people are caught up to what the story is. This is Minnesota in the summer. I mean, my God. You really gotta shout loud to get a story across, unless it's very important because people are in summer mode in this state. But we're gonna still be following the news and reporting to you. And I guess it was shocking to me. I didn't even know what the news was. But now I look at the news story and I go, okay, I see issues with both sides of this, and I don't just mean the bad tweet. First of all, the Republicans seem to be abandoning the states' right mantra, which is I think should be like, if you're a Republican, there should be like a couple just mainstays. You should always be for limited government, less spending, right? They're not. They're clearly not, right? And you should always be for states' rights. Like, that's the other thing about the Republican Party. It's supposed to be a states' rights like supporter. And in this case, it's like, hand over all this data because, the federal government's run by a good guy right now. A good guy that also won't release the Epstein files. Hey, maybe that's the trade-off. Secretary of State Steve Simon should do a trade-off. Let's get the Epstein list and I'll give you the voter data. But what puzzles me is, when it comes to real ID, when it comes to just about like no pushback on taxes, like think about the most intrusive thing that the government does to us, other than maybe spying and our privacy invasion by the federal government. It's the fact that we literally have to give all like data of bank accounts and brokerage accounts and our income and our sources of income to the federal government every April of every year. There's no pushback on that. We just openly love the fact that we do that kind of stuff. And so we can't give like a public file of voters. That seems ridiculous. So that's the way I kind of look at it there is like the Republican stance here is just we give everything to the federal government. But at the same point, the Democrats, I'm going to counter their point in the fact that this is your stance. The voter file, that's the stance right there. I don't know what, maybe you know this better than me, Jesse. What data is different that they would give to the federal government that you and I can't just go purchase for $46 because we can go down to the Secretary of State's office and get the voter file for $46, which we've done many times. Do you know even know what they're referring to? Like, is there well, no, cell data is in that other one. What is
No,
the data
yeah,
that we don't
I
get?
don't know exactly. I mean, there's certain things like, the parties are entitled to get the list of, which, they get to figure out which voters are voting in their primaries. So that's information that people can't just buy from the Secretary of State's office. But that doesn't sound like that's the concern of why the DOJ is requesting this information. I would assume that it more has to do with illegal aliens than anything else. And I'm a little torn on
Oh, you
this
think
too
it's a
because
back door? Is that what you're
was
saying? You think it's a back door into illegals voting?
there could be that, right? That, and also, I think there's all kinds of election fraud that you wouldn't be able to uncover unless you're in a position of power within the elections, like the Secretary of State. If you're able to see all of the back end data, if you're able to see all information related to voting machines, if there was any irregularities or problems with it, that's information potentially he would be trying to cover up as well. But so I'm a little torn like you as well because on one hand I'm about the process, states' rights, but on
Right.
the other hand, would I rather see the right thing done with the wrong process, or would I rather have, the other end of it? And so, if the end result is to clean up our election rolls in Minnesota and to remove illegal aliens and any other concerns of election integrity, then I guess why would I be concerned if the federal government's the one doing it versus the state? Of course, I'd rather have it done by the state, but the state's not going to do that.
Okay, well, here's where the Democrats could win me over, okay? Message to all the Democrats watching this show. Um, you could win me over here by saying, "We are not providing stuff to the federal government." I'll be like, "Yes. Yes." So we're not gonna follow their bullshit gun laws. We're not gonna follow their bullshit request to know our sources of income and basically all taxation. We're not gonna do any of this stuff. We're not gonna comply with real ID. Let's stand up to the federal government.
Well, and
That's
they
how
already
the
are with the transgender stuff as well. They're standing up on the college athletes. The Democrats are allowing the transgenders to continue to play. So that's another federal order that they're
yeah, isn't
refusing
that funny
to
how they
abide
pick and choose? Isn't that funny how they do that?
by.
Now, here's how the Republicans could easily secure me. Like let's actually prioritize some stuff. Okay, if you really want to make the stance, election rules. Okay, I could understand. Let's get it. I mean, maybe the federal government's better at auditing our voter rolls, and also it's worth mentioning the Democrats have been in charge of those voter rolls for as long as I can remember. So that's your stance. Let's not stop there. All right. Let's go beyond that. How about the IRS can't come into our pockets and ask for money and can't ask for more of our information? And how about um we don't comply with real ID, which by the way, the Republicans were the ones that piloted that across the finish line in Minnesota in 2017. That's how you guys could get me on board. This one's just a goofy one because I just really don't. I see both sides, the Uniparty being hypocrites, and like it's not. And this is the other thing, and this is the way I've been feeling, Jesse, lately, is that um not lately. I mean, this is how I see politics. It's all supposed to be team blue versus team red. You got to pick a side. You got to get on board. And I'm like, I think these guys are both lying to us. I'm not like on board with either one of you guys, like not wholeheartedly. And a lot of the Republicans who I would say that I'm on board with, they're a bunch of hypocrites. We're gonna get on this segment on Josh Hawley when we talk about rebate checks for a government that's running a $2 trillion budget deficit. So it just seems like one of those other tricks where it's almost like they want us yelling at each other. And meanwhile, the system, the cogs keep on turning, and those are not going in the right direction. They're not going towards liberty. Oh, Merle Hexham's down there, says hello, all, and I say hello to you too, Merle, from way up north. Anything else on that, Jesse?
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying too. That it's do we want the federal government encroaching in all kinds of areas that are not designated constitutionally? Of course not. And the federal government is only expanding. They're only doing more and more unconstitutional things. Obviously, Pam Bondi hasn't been proven to be a trustworthy actor in charge of the Department of Justice. So we can't even hail the Department of Justice as something that's going to be trustworthy only going to be giving us factual information. We can't trust that the Department of Justice is only bringing cases that are justified. Of course, it's better than the alternative. There's no doubt about that. Of course, President Trump and his team are far superior to anything the Democrats were going to offer us. They don't have any kind of principle on these issues. But I see some concerns with giving over election data to the federal government because it's not just for the Trump administration that would get this data. It's all future administrations as well.
Right, exactly. And that's the thing that okay, so once again, if you're a Democrat or a lefty that's watching this show, okay, probably not, but if you are, you want to unify, you hate Donald Trump, you hate the president right now, okay, got it. How about we limit his power? Wouldn't that be a great thing? Let's limit his power because in the end of the day, I know that it won't be just a Republican in that office. In fact, it might be someone really bad like Joe Biden. And honestly, it's even wrong saying Joe Biden. It might be the person that's running Joe Biden, whoever's
Hunter.
behind the auto pen. I don't know if it's Hunter. I think it was the operatives at that highest level of the Democrat Party.
In that long interview, Hunter's talking like he might run in 2028. So
yeah. Oh, I see what you're saying.
Know.
I meant who was running Joe Biden. Like that was the real problem. But yes, Hunter could be the guy, right? Or it could be Gavin Newsom. Okay, so it's going to end up whatever
probably
power
going to
the
be
federal
Gavin
government
Newsom.
takes.
If Walz is dipping out, I think Gavin Newsom is the most likely at this point.
100%. Yeah, you could see the moves so clearly. All right. Let's move on to this next segment. This is brought to you by Elite Guardian, MN.com. Want to come shoot with me? Want to learn how to protect yourself in case of a bad guy who wants to hurt you or your family? Learn how to protect yourself and your home by registering for my concealed carry and home defense class, which is USCCA certified class. You can go to EliteGuardianMN.com, sign up. It's Monday evening, so it's less than a week away. Up in Hugo, Minnesota. Go to EliteGuardianMN.com. All right, this story popped on our radar right before we went live, and so I'm gonna see here. I think I got it. Oh, here we go. All right, this is according to KARE 11. Minnesota National Guard deployed St. Paul declares state of emergency in response to cyber attack. Governor Walz issued the executive order Tuesday afternoon while the city declared a state of emergency. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz issued an executive order to activate the National Guard Tuesday after the city of St. Paul became the target of a cyber attack. According to the governor's office, the order takes effect immediately. Quote, we are committed to working alongside the city of St. Paul to restore cybersecurity as quickly as possible, said Governor Walz in a statement. The Minnesota National Guard cyber forces will collaborate with city, state, and federal officials to resolve the situation and mitigate lasting impacts. Above all, we are committed to protecting the safety and security of the people of St. Paul. Officials said the magnitude and complexity of the attack exceed the city's response capacity, necessitating cyber protection support from the Guard. The attack also prompted the city to declare a state of emergency. At a press conference, St. Paul Mayor Melvin Carter stated that the city has, quote, limited data on residents who are not employed by the city and asked those who are to remain vigilant about their personal data. He added that the attack is contained to city systems. On its website, the city said the attack had temporarily impacted access to most of its internal systems and online services. A city official told KARE 11 the city itself took those services down as a defensive mechanism. However, emergency services like 911 and some city services remain online. You can see a list of those services here. As of midday Tuesday, it wasn't clear who was behind the attack, but the city said it's working closely with local, state, and federal partners to resolve the situation and restore full functionality. According to city officials, federal agencies, including the FBI, are currently leading the investigation. Now, I don't know how many of you guys see where I'm going with this one. This is the actual executive order issued by Governor Tim Walz. This is emergency order, executive order 2508, providing assistance to the city of St. Paul. I, Tim Walz, governor of the state of Minnesota, by the authority vested in me by the Constitution and applicable statutes, issue the following executive order. Now, he's not talking about Chapter 12 here, is he? Okay, we'll get back to that. All right. On Friday, July 25th, the city of St. Paul experienced a cyber attack. For these reasons, I order as follows. The adjutant general is authorized to order to state active duty the personnel, equipment, facilities, and resources needed to provide assistance throughout Minnesota. The adjutant general is authorized to procure the goods and services needed to accomplish the mission. And 3, the cost of the assistance shall be paid from the general fund. Okay. You know what I found so interesting about this, Jesse, is
What's that?
the people that attack the Never Again bill, which gets rid of the governor's ability to unilaterally declare emergency powers, say, well, what could a governor do if this thing ever passed, right? He has to declare a state of emergency if there's a terrorist attack or there's a cyber attack, which is literally the argument that was made in the one committee hearing it got this year. What if there's a cyber attack? And
Yep,
somehow, miraculously,
Bonner, a Democrat, was the one who was making that case. She made the same case on the floor. Yeah, it was a Democrat argument that they were using to say, yeah, if the example was a cyber attack, as if the governor wouldn't be able to do anything, the legislature wouldn't be able to do anything in that moment.
And by the way, that's not just a Democrat attack point. That is literally Republicans. We've heard just as many Republicans use that. What would we do if there was a cyber attack? By the way, they also say, what happens if the nuclear bomb goes off? And I'm just like, oh yeah, we all care about what kind of government we have. Like, my God, what a dumb comment that is. But the cyber attack is the interesting one because that's what's used to scare people. And here we have a cyber attack in the second largest city in Minnesota, and somehow Governor Walz does not have to declare a unilateral emergency powers using Chapter 12 to get the National Guard's assets to go to that cyber attack. Amazing how that works, right? Because, it just so happens that the Minnesota National Guard is at the direction of the governor of Minnesota anyhow. So I think it really undermines their whole argument. This is a rumble
And
rant
does this have an expiration date? Does this order have an expiration date?
Putting me on the spot here. I got to go back. I don't remember.
I don't think it really matters, but no, I just think it's interesting because obviously with under Chapter 12, like you were saying, it requires legislative approval after a while, and who knows how long he wants to use this. And let's not forget that Tim Walz, he's using the National Guard for this, but he previously had called them 19-year-old cooks. So the people who he called 19-year-old cooks are the people that he's expecting to solve the cybersecurity attack that happened in the capital city of St. Paul.
Yeah. I mean, I'll grant you a little bit on that one. I mean, I think I think that comment's a little bit taken out of context. I think he's well aware that the National Guard does have these kind of elements that are very capable. Although then again, I guess if they're just cooks in their normal day,
saying that in relation to the National Guard being deployed for the BLM riots, of course, it's not just a bunch of 19-year-old cooks. We've seen the National Guard, all around the country, and yeah. So, what are you trying to say then?
Well, I think he's kind of talking about the readiness of the National Guard, but then again, I guess that still takes in because I don't think cybersecurity assets are necessarily all active duty, so you would have to activate it. So I guess, yeah, why wouldn't that still apply? Because if they're just 19-year-old cooks, how do they all of a sudden get activated in a short amount of time? Yeah, fair point.
Mhm.
Although it is a
Okay,
little
I
easier
guess
to
say in some cases.
yeah,
So
it is a little
he's
easier to
giving himself
mobilize.
that out.
It is a little easier to mobilize that than it is, mobile units coming down like patrolling the cities. But needless to say, fair point. I'll give you half credit on that one, right? This answers your question. This remains in effect until the emergency conditions caused by a cyber attack subside or until it is rescinded by proper authority, whichever occurs first. Okay. By the way, don't construe with my taking you on that issue as at all being sympathetic to Tim Walz, because O'Bannon properly writes in this Rumble rant, Walz lies, can't wait for the state fair. Yes, Action for Liberty's big Walz lies booth is going to be tremendously great. Buddy
Oh yeah,
03,
no, it's
Buddy
going to be fun.
036,
What's that?
Buddy 036 says just shows comrades like St. Paul better than Minneapolis.
Yep. But yeah, no. To O'Bannon's point, the state fair is going to be a lot of fun, and it's always very active, and it gives a great sense for the state because despite the Democrats having all this power, you see it firsthand how many conservatives there really are in Minnesota.
Right on. Okay, let's get into this last segment here. This is brought to you once again by John Galt Mortgage Company. If you're looking to buy a home, go to the good guys at John Galt Mortgage Company. You can go to johngaltmortgage.com or check them on Facebook or X. All right, Jesse. Let me pull this up. This is according to the Hill. Oh, you know what? I never even that meeting with Jerome Powell was on Friday. We never even got a comment on that. What an interesting story that was.
Oh yeah,
Hawley
that,
introduced.
that was really interesting to see the two of them walking together, and Trump kind of calling him on the carpet for how much he was actually spending, and Jerome Powell trying to wiggle his way out by saying, "Well, that's another building." Well, that's still a part of the construction of what you got going on. So
It did
pretty
seem like
interesting.
Trump was playing a trick there on that. That, but yeah, I mean, I guess that the end of the day, I don't even give a shit about that. It's like in the end of the day, it's like the Fed is ripping us off tremendously, and Trump isn't against the Federal Reserve. In fact, what he's asking for is for them to lower interest rates. And in this goofy time where Trump seems to be making a lot of the wrong moves, in my opinion, I don't want to be so blinded by the fact that I don't think Jerome Powell is a good actor here, and I'm against the Federal Reserve even existing. Don't I have this book up here? No, I don't have the In the Fed. I don't think it's on my. It's probably in my
I got to
office.
land around somewhere too, actually.
Yeah, I'd
But
love to go
I'm
into
not
that.
actually sure. I'm not 100% sure where I land on that issue. But what's interesting is I think it did stabilize markets just by having Trump and Jerome Powell meeting together and having that public, face-to-face discussion there. I think that it stabilizes markets a little bit because they're kind of sworn enemies, and to see them face-to-face, polite enough, I think is a good thing for markets.
Yeah, but I can't get over the fact that what Trump wants him to do is lower interest rates, as if Jerome Powell himself does that. And it's like, you know, this is the problem that I have is interest rates need to be a market mechanism. So Trump doesn't have the wisdom to know if we should lower interest rates or not, which I'm assuming we shouldn't, because low interest rates would be a result of high savings, meaning there's a ton of money to be loaned out. And that's not the case in our economy. At the same point, who is Jerome Powell to say, "Oh, I know interest rates"? You see what I'm saying? It's like both guys are playing the same game. They just have a different opinion on the game or how to play the game, but they're playing the same damn game. And I'm over here going, "This is a corrupt game. This is a rigged game. This is a bad game." Right?
Mhm.
Like
So you don't want a Federal Reserve that's even based on gold or another precious metal or something.
I'm against central banks for the very reason that we know what ends up happening with them. So yes, I would be against it. I think if you're talking about a gold-backed currency, which I'm a huge fan of, why would you need a central bank behind that? The government could back that currency through the United States Treasury Department, or you could
Well,
truly be free market and let the markets develop currency, and then those are competing. But let's just say the
you have
government.
to, but isn't there some way that you have to be able to loan? Get there's elements where others are buying. I forget what it's called, but you're buying portions of the debt. There's all kinds of financing elements to the Federal Reserve too.
Yeah, I mean, they buy assets, which are debt-backed assets, which I think is what you're referring to. They buy treasuries, but that's not done with real savings here. It's done with printed money. They are the money printers. So now, if we had, well, money still gets printed.
By the Treasury.
Well, no, the banking system actually creates money. It's not
Yeah,
just.
they decide, but the Treasury prints it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I'm saying, like, even beyond, like buying the debt assets, like the Federal Reserve controls it controls a ratio of what loans can or banks can loan out versus the deposits, right? And essentially, a bank can just loan out money that doesn't really exist. It's another form of money creation. I'm sorry, I don't mean to go down the road of my problems with centralized economic planning and banking. Um, got a lot of books on that here. Oh, here we go. Ludwig von Mises. There you go. That's a good book. The Theory of Money and Credit. If you want a real good book, it's it's a thick one, but that's like.
But okay, I guess putting the Federal Reserve aside, if you were the president and the Federal Reserve isn't going anywhere, how do you deal with that system? Do you want lower interest
Well,
rates
okay,
with that
so
system?
yeah, so what I would do is I would appoint someone that truly understands the problems with the Federal Reserve as the president of the Federal Reserve. So it's like if you're the governor of Minnesota, how do you go against the Met Council? You appoint someone that's against the Met Council's current mission. Okay, I think the Met Council was really designed for buses and sanitation, and now it's like everything, and it's a taxing authority. So you'd have to get someone that's there to basically erode away what it's doing, and that's what I would do with the Federal Reserve. I would have someone like Jim Grant. That would be from the Grant's Interest Rate Observer, longtime Wall Street critic of the Federal Reserve and the manipulation of interest rates. That's what I would do. I would have someone inside the system trying to do it. And I would audit the Federal Reserve, and I would do. I would probably lead the effort to actually get rid of the Federal Reserve's charter. So, but I mean, Trump's not that way. He doesn't think that
But
way, and he
right,
likes low
so
interest rates because he's a
in the
developer.
binary debate of, I guess there's three choices: higher interest rates, the same interest rates, or lower interest rates. What do
Okay.
you say?
Okay. So, all right. So the problem with socialism is it's price setting, right? And the government seems to know what the price of things are. That's why socialism doesn't work. So if the government sets a price that's too low, right? And this is the argument we made like during Walls and Mercy Powers, where like you can't um, jack up the price of gasoline, right? And during COVID, um, because how dare you take that money away from the poor? And really, the price needs to be determined by the marketplace because if you have a run on gasoline and you don't raise the price of gasoline, then there's going to be a shortage of gasoline. Does that make sense? So it's the same thing with any price. We don't agree with price controls by a central authority, usually the government, but it could be a central bank, because it could create shortages, or it could de-incentivize producers, because if it was too low, it de-incentivizes producers. Hence, the price of money, which is what an interest rate is. So if an interest rate's too low, you de-incentivize the people, the real savers. Okay. So essentially, if interest rates were, I mean, every borrower would love interest rates to be 25 basis points, 0.25, right? Wouldn't they love that? That's like the lowest it could go. They would love it. Borrowing costs would be so cheap Guess who doesn't like it? The actual savers, the lenders of that money. So, and it would never be that low because no one would ever loan money at that. You would have to be so flush with cash in an economy to even consider that. Now, if interest rates are really high, well, then you create another problem. You create a shortage of people that are actually developing businesses because they can't afford to borrow. Okay. So, what's the answer to your question, Jesse? I don't know, and nobody knows because that's what the system, that's what the markets determine, and they should always determine it. And it's when a central bank or a government comes in and goes, "Hey, we know what the interest rate is." They screw it up, and it creates booms and bust cycles. That's where guys like this make a ton of sense. So
Right,
no,
but
you
I'm
got
sure you would agree that lower interest rates allow people to, uh, you know, uh, you know, take on more.
to.
So
Yep.
I would figure that it's better for the economy then if more people are allowed to take business risks.
Business risks aren't always good, are they? So what it does is it sends by the way, I love the fact we're having this conversation. Did not plan on this, and this is one of my favorite topics. This is the Austrian business cycle. By artificially lowering interest rates, you create booms in certain areas. And the most obvious one to people my age, you would have been too young at this point, was when they lower interest rates and incentivize people to purchase homes. What ends up happening is home prices go up, and home prices continue going up until the market determines, well, this is actually not a sustainable price. And then people get left high and dry, and it creates a big bust. And that's what the Great Recession was. And so this occurs in so many different things, so many different assets. So no, it's not good to just lower interest rates because then you get malinvestment, and we don't want malinvestment. There's always going to be malinvestment. Some people are going to make bad decisions in an economy, but when a government or a central bank is producing more people to make those bad decisions through the manipulation of interest rates, it becomes a very big problem. And it doesn't always evenly go out through the economy the same way. It's actually sometimes it's very predictable what the government's doing and incentivizing. Hence, that's why some people actually were able to account for the housing market crash, why they predicted it, because they saw those big moves and they go, "Oh, this inflation's going in the housing market."
Mhm.
Um, I could give a lot of other examples in there, but I think that one should suffice. The Great Recession, I think, is in a lot of people's minds. So yeah, Trump is not a he is well, he's not really an ideological guy, but he's just on board with the current system as it is, and that creates huge disparity. There's a reason our dollar is worth like nothing in the history of, and I don't know what you call the history of our dollar because our dollar's changed so much. Once was backed by gold, once was backed by silver. Maybe basically since the breakdown of Bretton Woods is what we would consider our current dollar, and the value of that dollar is like basically um dropped 90 some percent, like, so, and that's not good, and that's not good for savers, right? So, and that's the other thing, Jesse, shouldn't you be incentivized to save? Isn't savings good? Okay, sorry, went way on a tangent there. I don't want to lose audience. Let's get into Josh Hawley. I'd have to have a very niche show to talk about centralized economic planning and the Federal Reserve. But I have very strong feelings about it because these people are robbing us dry. Josh Hawley has introduced a bill to provide $600 tariff rebates to adults and children. Senator Josh Hawley has introduced legislation that provides $600 tariff rebates to almost all Americans and to their dependent children, a proposal that would give a family of four $2,400. Oh, I didn't realize it was. Oh, okay. Well, okay. I'm a family of five. $3,000. Never mind, guys. I'm on board with this. By the way, I just gotta say, I'm on board with the government not taking our money or giving our money back. Okay, just want to throw this out. I'm gonna shit on the fact that what are you doing? Are you acting like we've all of a sudden got ahead on our finances? But I am pro the government having less of our money.
Right,
Okay,
and if they're
so
going to be spending it on something, tax rebates is better than them spending it on, all the other garbage that they could be spending it on. We hear all the time about all the wasteful spending that goes on, us spending our money going overseas. I don't mind seeing the tariff money go back to the people.
well, okay, but this is a misnomer. Like there's so much tariff money that like all of a sudden we're running surpluses. That's just not true, and I'll get to that. Hawley said in a statement that Americans deserve a tax rebate after 4 years of Biden policies that have devastated families, savings, and livelihoods. By the way, wasn't he in the Senate during those times? Okay, whatever. Like President Trump proposed, my legislation would allow hardworking Americans to benefit from the wealth that Trump's tariffs are returning to this country. He said it's not true. I mean, the tariffs are bringing in more revenue, but not to the point like we could start handing out money. The legislation would be modeled on the direct payments Congress authorized in the 2020 CARES Act, which provided $1,200 direct payments to adults and $500 direct payments to their children. I didn't realize this, but Hawley teamed up with Senator Bernie Sanders in 2020 to advocate for a second round of $1,200 stimulus checks during the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, that is what created inflation in our modern era. Josh Hawley is one of the reasons we had such large inflation in the prices of goods and services, because he thought we could just send out money from the federal government and not even touch expenditures. Okay. So we were running a $3 trillion deficit in fiscal year 2020. And then 2021, another like $2 trillion? I can't remember, but it was a big budget deficit. I'm sorry, I take that back. I think that was $3 trillion in fiscal year 2021. I have to remember the fiscal year ends in September. So either way, massive budget deficit, and we haven't returned to, we haven't balanced the damn budget in forever since fiscal year 2000, and we haven't gone under $1 trillion deficit since, was it the Bush era? I think it was the Bush era. We've been north of overspending by $1 trillion. Okay, so let's get into where our current budget is. The federal budget deficit totaled $1.3 trillion in the first 9 months of fiscal year 2025, CBO estimates. That amount is $65 billion more than the deficit recorded during the same period last year. Now, revenues increased by $254 billion, which partly is due to the tariffs, but outlays rose by $320 billion or 6%. You see what I'm saying? The deficit continues to grow more because we keep spending money. We're spending so much money that we're now, and I remember it wasn't long ago when we did this show and the U.S. national debt was under $37 trillion. So we're over $37 trillion already. Okay, so my question to Josh Hawley is, listen, I love the fact that the government has less of our money, but they have, if you really want to give back our money, where are the spending cuts so we don't continue borrowing more money on behalf of our future generations? And that's what he's doing. We're going to have a $2 trillion budget deficit this year. How on earth can you be giving back $600 checks to every American? That doesn't even make sense. What am I missing on this, Jesse?
Yeah, I get what you're saying too. It's obviously, Josh Hawley was pushing for the COVID money. It's always good electorally, let's be honest, to give out money to the people. People always appreciate that. What Trump was saying he had some press asking him questions. I put it in the document if we want to watch it. But what Trump is basically saying, he also brings up the national debt as an issue of, as an issue that he also wants the tariffs to help solve. So I don't know. I think it's good that we're getting in this tariff money. It's about time that we get our fair piece of the pie, since the world has been taking advantage of us with all of these trade deals. So, and if Trump wants to do both, a rebate and pay off the debt, it sounds like a good solution to me.
All right, let's go to your clip here.
Yeah.
We have so much money coming in. We're thinking about a little rebate, but the big thing we want to do is pay down debt. We're thinking about a rebate because we have so much money coming in from tariff that's a little rebate for people of a certain income level might be very nice.
Okay, I mean, like, this is once again, and because I'm starting to sound like I just can't stand Donald Trump, but in some regards, I just got to call out the bullshit. We have so much money coming in, expenditures continue to rise.
Well, you have to like that first part of the statement where he's saying we want to take care of the debt.
But you're not. The debt's actually expanding.
Well,
Like,
he's
this
going to
is,
use
like,
some of the money.
literally
Is what he's
stupid.
saying there.
What's that?
He's going to use some of the money. He's saying there, some of the tariff money towards the debt.
But he's acting like there's a big pot of money in this. There's not. There really isn't. This is just a statement not backed by actual finances. Like,
I
there
don't
is
know. I mean, he got
there's no
$550 million
there's no
recently from
surplus.
Japan.
What's
550
that?
million recently from Japan. We're bringing in millions every single day with these tariffs. That amounts to real money.
It's I'm not saying it's not real money, it's just not making a dent in our deficit, right? Until you actually are running a budget surplus, what are we talking about? Why would we be giving money back to people? We are overspending. It doesn't even make sense to me. Now, if the budget is running a surplus, one thing would be, yeah, you pay down the debt with that surplus because we're 37 trillion in the hole. But you could make the argument, which we do definitely in the state of Minnesota, give it back to the taxpayers. But we're not running a surplus. We're actually running a deficit of $2 trillion. It hasn't changed. I don't know what math this guy's looking at, but it's crazy. It's
Well, he's
crazy
saying,
talk.
here's what he's talking about. We're the hottest country in the world. We got the hottest economy in the world. The world cannot survive without the United States. So he says, if we want to look at the C4, which I have in the document there, Trump is saying, if these other countries have lower interest rates than us, shouldn't we also be able to enjoy that as well, considering the fact that, like he says, we're the hottest economy in the world, and the world cannot survive without us. As you can see in there, China has a lower interest rate than the United States. Russia has a lower interest rate than the United States. And considering that, the United States, like I said, is the far and away the top economy of the world, uh, and considering that we're supposed to be the land of the free, why are our interest rates so much higher than these other countries? China has debt, Russia has debt, so it is unfair that we're dealing with these countries as competitors when they've got much lower interest rates for their businesses and for their people.
The way that I listen to what you're saying here, because obviously we're both so pro America, it's like, yeah, I agree with, yeah, definitely. We are the greatest country. We're hot, but it's like looking in your neighborhood and going, man, my neighbor's got all these new things, right? And I don't have those things. Why can't we have those new things? It's like, oh yeah, I have $37,000 in credit card debt. That's why I can't have those nice things. Now, in this analogy, they have $10,000 in credit card debt. So they're maybe a little bit better than us, but it's not. It's just we have to look at our own self. And it's like, what are you talking about? You do. This is like, I mean, I guess if I was to use this analogy, if you have $37,000 in credit card debt, who are you to start giving gifts of $60 to the neighborhood kids? Like, that's not the position you're in. You got to start paying down your debt. And it's only going to get worse the more interest rates go up. Once again, I got to say, I am not against the money given back to the people. It's just, it doesn't make sense in this scenario unless you start cutting spending. But you can't have a $1 trillion Pentagon budget and also give back more money. So, yeah,
You can in the short term, though. In the short term, you can. I think even if that policy were to go into effect, the United States is still going to be successful. We're not going to have any kind of recession because of giving money out to the people. So it's one of those things in the short term for Trump's foreseeable future as president. I can't imagine it would have any kind of devastating effect to us. And since we're not going to be called out on the carpet anytime soon as a country for our debt, we still are in the clear to where they can get away with everything that they want.
okay, so how would you I'm just trying to think what the math would be on this, but let's say it's a $1 trillion program, giving $600. It's not only to taxpayers, it would be up to 3,600 or 30, well, it's per person in the household, right? I would say that's about a $1 trillion program. I'm guessing somewhere in that ballpark. Maybe it's 500 billion. It's a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, can we just say $1 trillion? Okay. So it's a $1 trillion program. All right. So that means our deficit this year will not be $2 trillion. It'll be $3 trillion.
No, because they already have that money.
No, they don't.
I don't think the tariff money is specifically appropriated by Congress to be spent a certain way.
No, I'm telling you what the budget is, including tariffs. It's $2 trillion budget deficit.
Hmm.
Mhm. See what I'm
And I'm
saying?
saying we can still get away with it in the short term. And,
No, you
you know,
could. No, Jesse, you could. Okay. So
right.
let's add $1 trillion to the deficit. So it's $3 trillion. How does that? Because in the end of the day, the government doesn't have a pot of money, right? So what do they do to get that $1 trillion extra to the deficit? Where are they going to get that?
Well,
They go
they
knock.
say they would say from the economy that the economy is going to produce more.
So just a bunch of savers in our country buy up that debt. No, there's not that much demand for U.S. Treasuries. What ends up happening is they go to the Federal Reserve and they go buy U.S. Treasuries. That's what they did during COVID. That's why I predicted accurately we would have price inflation after these COVID expansions, because it was so obvious to me they're going to go to the Federal Reserve, they're going to buy up the debt by printing money out of thin air, and that's exactly what would happen. So yeah, they could get away with it in the immediate term, Jesse, but then what's going to end up happening is, lo and behold, we're going to have higher egg prices, higher beef prices, higher oil prices. All those things will continue going up because we decided, hey, let's just tackle on another $1 trillion of debt, which will be financed by money printing.
Right. No, I agree. It could be a major problem. We don't want to see that kind of spending. If you are going to be doing this, you should be at least cutting the federal government spending by the amount that
Bingo.
you're
Exactly.
cutting, that you're giving back. So,
Then,
but
then
I'm
we can
still
have a lot of
opportunistic.
agreement. We can have a lot
Uh,
of agreement on that.
Trump, Trump hasn't talked about it really since the campaign, but during the campaign, he would say that we're going to cancel the debt from China, that it's going to be negotiated through trade deal. I'm still optimistic that that could happen, because that would, because if we can negotiate our way out of it, that's even better, and it gets our country out of not the entire hole, but it gets us a little bit out. So I'm still opportunistic that Trump knows what he's doing on these trade deals. I love the tariffs. People say the tariffs are so unpopular. I wish he would do even more. I think it's about time the United States gets the best deal.
All right. Well, that's all the time we have here. We'll talk about a little bit more of this in the post show. If you're not a premium insider, you can go to truthhurtsnews.com, or on Rumble, you can click on join us. We'll be live 30 seconds after the show ends
Wait,
in the post
did you
show
see the
for.
Rumble rant down there?
Did we have another Rumble rant? I'm
There's
sorry. Did I
another
miss
one.
one? Oh, Bannon again. Jesse is math moron.
Yeah, at least I know my words.
I was like, is Jesse going to pick up on that? Well done, Jesse. We can insult the great
No, that's
O'Bannon.
okay. I mean, I can go either way. And like I said, ultimately, if the tariff money is included in that, like you're saying, then we should have cuts at least equal to that amount if we're going to be giving out rebate checks.
Yeah, we have a lot of agreement on that. And you're like Representative Steve or Zach Stevenson. You could go either way. All right, so let's thank you, O'Bannon, for the Rumble rants. Thank you to our great sponsors, John Galt Mortgage. If you're looking to buy a home, give the good guys at John Galt Mortgage a chance at financing them. Go to johngaltmortgage.com. Also brought to you by EliteGuardianMN.com. If you want to get your conceal or permit to carry in Minnesota by taking my concealed carry and home defense course, sign up Monday evening in Hugo, Minnesota. You can go to LeadGuardianMN.com. Also brought to you by Alpine Cap Trade, St. Cloud, Minnesota. Once again, you know what? I'll quickly post the link here. If you want to become a premium subscriber, 1 second, live chat, like, here's the link. If you want to become a premium subscriber and join us in the post show, you'll get free access to our locals channel. I don't think we'll have a show on Thursday, just FYI. I've got a couple things I'm working, but I got some things getting in the way. So stay tuned, but I don't know if we'll be doing a show on Thursday. So the next chance we might get you is on Tuesday. Thank you guys so much, and we'll see you. Oh shoot, I lost Jesse apparently. Okay, we'll see you guys next week. Take care.